Hello, Internet. I am Corion, your witch in residence here on YouTube. And today we're going to be talking about the movie Labyrinth, which is a fantastic Jim Henson movie. It's bright, it's beautiful, and it has some very good messages. And I want to discuss some of those with you, specifically one of them. But before I get into that, I would like to say that this video is sponsored by you. I really appreciate your views, your subscriptions, and even your channel memberships. And I would like to ask you to consider sharing this video out to anyone and everyone you possibly can. It helps out the channel, but it also spreads the fantastic community we have going. Okay. I think I have some of the very best membership and viewership on YouTube, and I would like everyone to be able to experience the wonderful community that we've created here. So please consider sharing out the video. Give this one a like if you think it's worth your time. And thank you. Now, with that obligatory ritual out of the way, let's get into the labyrinth. Now, when I talk about the labyrinth, I could talk about, the message about friendship and being careful what you wish for, but what I really want to talk about is the unbelievable power of the word no. Or in this case, as our protagonist says, you have no power over me. And what does that do? It shatters the whole situation, right? It puts her back in her life, puts the kid back to bed. Everything goes the way it needs to go. That's incredibly powerful, okay? That's unbelievable. And if you actually take a look at the movie, she kind of says the equivalent of no 3 times in the movie, which in fairy lore, if you ask or make a request directly in that regard, like if you say no or you ask, make a request of a fairy for information, and you do it 3 times, they have to answer honestly. Now, that is kind of cool that Jim included that. I really think that's neat. But moving on. No is an unbelievably powerful word. And while I don't normally like to get too deep into gender politics, I'm going to say that we teach the power of no very differently to young men and young women. Young women are very much taught from an early age the power of no. The power of I do not consent to this. Now, I do personally believe that while they are most definitely taught the power of no, they're not taught that there are repercussions for using the word no as well as they could be. That they have the power of no, but the other person also has the capability of using no. And if they were to say, no, I don't consent to what's going on this date, and the other person says, okay, if that's the case, then I'm not continuing the date anymore. That's also acceptable. It sucks, and it's not always the outcome the individual wants, but there are 2 people involved, and if both of them are saying no, it has to be respected. I'm reminded of a story very recently that happened in my community where a young man who was very excited and very hopeful. He had been dating this young lady for a year, and he decided to pop the question. And he had the ring. He set up a nice private moment in a park, and he proposed. And she said no. And he stood up and said, okay, then I will put together a box of your things from my place. I'll drop them off when I come up to pick up the stuff from your place. And she said, well, wait a minute. I said no to getting married. I didn't say that I wanted to stop dating. And he said, well, I'm saying no to stop to dating if we're not going to get married because I don't see where this is going. Now, do I think the 2 of them should have sat down and talked and maybe tried to work things out? Sure. But if people's minds are made up, if they are pulling out the power of no, then it needs to be respected. And we see in Labyrinth it is respected, right? She says, you have no power over me. And David Bowie in his incredibly tight pants are forced to say, yeah, okay, you win, right? That's the end of this discussion. And that is how it should be, right? We should all be prepared that if things are not the way we want and it's reached an unacceptable point, to use the power of no. But we also must accept the responsibility of the repercussions from using the word no. For example, I think it's completely acceptable that if you find your local police are doing things you don't like, to let them know that you don't consent to the way they're behaving. But the clarity to that is you must then provide them the means and the opportunity to try to fix it. Okay? If you say, look, I don't like how you are dealing with certain groups inside my community, what I propose is that we look for a way to do this and I'm willing to help. Then you're helping solve the problem as well as saying no. And that is the right way to do things. Okay? If you don't like what your local government is doing, you absolutely have the authority, the personal authority to say, no, I don't like this. But you also have the responsibility to then get involved in the local politics and do something about it. Whether that be with your vote, whether that be with discussing with others, whether that be running yourself. You have that responsibility by using the power of no. And I think that is something that we need to remember as a society, as a people, because oftentimes we will say no and then don't follow up on it, right? And what happens is you leave the other party in a position where you've said no, you've said this isn't okay, but they don't know where to go from there. You leave them confused, you leave them isolated, you leave them in a problem state. Let's not do that, right? It is completely reasonable to say no. It is not okay to leave somebody completely at blank about where to move forward from there. So let's do that as a community, right? Let's get involved. My lovely American friends are moving into an election time. Now is absolutely the time to reach out to your politicians and say, I don't like where things are going. These are the changes I would like to see. And I'm not the only voice that feels this way. And get those opinions heard, right? You have the power to affect the agenda of the people that are making your decisions. Okay? Use it. There's a lot more of you than there are of them. And all governments are by consent at the end of the day. Even tyrannies, because they have to have the consent of a powerful military force in order to be able to hold it together. And if you don't consent, make that clear. Okay? We live in one of the most unique democracies ever to exist, where the people really do have the power to say yes and no. But you have to exercise it. And you have to exercise it in a way that shows respect to all parties, that allows for discourse, and allows us to grow as a community. Because if we just stagnate, if we just bunker down and throw rocks at each other, we're not going to get anywhere. But we can use the power of no, and the power of let's discuss this, let's move forward, let's build something better together. Then I think we're going to be okay. I know it may not seem like it these days. Politics have gotten more divisive than ever before. And I know some of you are deeply troubled by some of the political infighting going on right now. But you don't have to consent to it. The trick that people in power will try to get you to believe is you have to do it their way or the evil way. Well, that's not true. The other way is by sitting down and working towards consensus. I've talked a lot about consent in this video and a lot about agreeing and organizing permissions. And I feel this is absolutely important and things that should be discussed in any kind of relationship, whether civil, personal, or romantic. Okay? Make people aware of what you're okay with and what you're not, and where your line is, and where you're willing to work. And even that some pieces may be a line right now, but with trust and communication and a little bit of work, you might be willing to give a little ground on that to make sure that certain other freedoms are, you know, enshrined. Right? We all have to be willing to give a little bit but still hold to our lines. That is the way we move forward. Okay? Is through talking and through negotiation and through allowing each other to be heard and to give it weight. No is an incredibly powerful tool, and like any powerful tool, it can be misused. We need to make sure we're using it right. We need to make sure we're using it at those times where we absolutely have to. And we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to work with each other, even after we have put down that final statement of, no, I don't consent to this. This is a heavy topic, and it's one that I think deserves a lot more discussion in places a lot better suited to communication than a YouTube video where I'm just talking to you guys. But it's critical stuff. We talk often in craft, actually, about words having power. That what we say and what we do matters a great deal. No is an incredibly powerful tool. And it's not really held by everyone the same way. But it can't be wielded as a cudgel. It has to be wielded as a scalpel. This is a complicated topic, and it needs a deep discussion. And I'm really hoping you guys are willing to have that discussion in the comments. I'm okay with things going anywhere but personal attacks in the comments on this one, okay? Let's try to be civil to each other, understand that each of us has their own position on it, understanding that someone else's position might not be your position, and that's okay. But we do need to work on it together as a community and show that we can use the power of no responsibly. That it isn't going to be sitting there as daddy's gun in his office. It's going to be used the way it's intended, as a tool, as a barrier to stopping things that are unacceptable, and that it will be respected by all parties involved. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this one. I really appreciate you all. I'm going to be building a couple of new t-shirts over the next little while. I'm always open to input on them. If you guys are interested in doing so, please feel free to either email me or leave it in the comments in the channel. Thank you guys so much. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.